Welcome to Conversations with CSG, the global talent podcast from CSG Talent. We interview influential figures across a wide range of innovative and impactful industry sectors worldwide, discussing career journeys, overcoming challenge, achieving success, diversity, and much more. I'm sure you'll see value in a lot of the topics we cover. So here it is. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome to Conversations with CSG. Today, we're joined by Max Perilstein. Max, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
This is going to be fun.
So, the reason why we wanted you on this podcast is you have so much industry knowledge. Your weekly blogs, your regular posts, meeting you at Glass Build, all your talks you do, you've got a wealth of knowledge. But what actually got you into the industry in the beginning, those years ago?
Well, it was a family business. I did not want to be in the industry, which is kind of funny since I'm so in love with it right now. It goes back to 1898. My great-grandfather came over with $34 in his pocket and a glass cutter and started a glass business. And the family had been in it ever since. And when it got to me, I was the youngest of four kids. I was 10 years after my brother and 12 and 14 years after my sisters. So I was a little bit of a mistake, basically. The family was already set, and they were heavy into the glass business. And as I was growing up, wanted nothing to do with it. I saw how it kind of beat my dad and my brother and sister up, because this is a tough business at times. And I didn't want anything to do with it. I went into sports broadcasting. I had a little bit of a career there, very tough business sort of thing. And my brother said to me one day, "Hey, glass business is in your blood. Come give it a shot." Yeah. And I did. And as they say, the rest is history. And that was back in 1991. And, I've loved it ever since. But, if you would have told me in 1986, that I would be in the glass business all these years later and be loving it and be a part of my world, I would ask you what the heck happened to me. There was no way. So go ahead.
You are the glass business in America. The knowledge, I know everyone learns a lot from you. Your blogs, like I said, I learn a lot from it. I know so many people do. So you turning away from sports broadcasting to get into glazing was a very good decision. So did you start out on the field? Did you start in the office?
I started in the office. The funny story is years before when I was 12 or 13, my dad had this hope that, I would follow everybody else in the glass business. And he brought me in and he put me in the warehouse. And on the first day, I broke more glass than anybody known to man. And he said to me after the first day, "You're an office person." And so I finished working a little bit, still didn't like it. But when I finally rejoined the business in 91, I started in inside sales, kind of learned from the ground up. So I was always in the office, taking orders, customer service sort of stuff, and then just grew from there. And then my brother really was active in trying to say, "Hey, get involved with the Glass Association of North America," which at that time was the preeminent technical group, NGA as well. And so got involved with that, and it just kind of took off. And like he had said to me, glass is in my blood, and it really, really came together fast.
Yeah, you're a prominent figure in NGA, and it's really good that the industry has these organizations that really spread the word of glass. It's national now to make it international. Some people here doing things in the UK, but are there plans to grow the NGA and those other organizations globally?
Yeah, I'd be surprised because, it real focus is heavy on North America. And there are so many great organizations throughout the world. Australia has a great one. You obviously in the UK have a couple really good ones. Over in Germany, when we have Glass Tech, there's a lot of great organizations that come in from Europe, other parts of Europe. So I think NGA is going to be pretty settled with focusing on North America. And there's a lot here that needs to continue to be focused on. Training is really important. Workforce development is really important. And I think we've got our hands full there. We have a new CEO coming in July. So, a lot could change with new leadership. I'm pretty excited, pretty confident about where the future is going to be no matter what.
I think, you just touched upon their workforce development, and it kind of leads us on to, one of the questions, when you started in the glass industry, things are very different to what they are now. You see, obviously, workforce development being one, but cost efficiency being very important, an emphasis on pace, precision. What are the top trends we're seeing right now in the glazing industry? Obviously there's a lot going on externally,
Sure.
with tariffs and the changing markets. But what are the trends we're seeing in the glazing industry itself?
Well, I think it's a reality that it's really hard to find people. And obviously that's your business, and the challenge of finding people. And so there's a lot of push for internal training, a lot of push to see where AI fits. There's some outfits that are putting out some really, really good AI, approaches that could help with estimating and project managing and so on. So that could be a really interesting step as it goes forward and matures. But there's a lot of angles on how do we get more efficient, like you had said. And a lot of that comes with internal training and trying to grow the workforce. Instead of trying to track somebody who may be in their 30s or 40s, it's getting into the high schools, getting into the junior colleges or universities and talking about how great this industry is and at least educating them. Because a lot of people, when you say the word glazer, if you're not in this business, you think it's glazing a donut, or they mispronounce it and they see the word and they pronounce it as glacier, like the snow wintry thing. So we've got some ways to go to educate, but if we can get the younger crowd in and see what this is, and also now with the technology out there, like for instance, with the robots that are coming on site, the handling on them are basically like a game console. It's like playing Xbox, except you're moving this robot around to help install curtain wall. I think there's a key there that people could use maybe the skills that they use by playing Xbox or PlayStation at home and make money on a job site helping to install curtain wall. And I think that's part of the future of what we got to figure out.
Yeah, I think in terms of the younger generation, going to the schools, delivering talks, delivering that education, I think that does really help to bring those younger people into the industry. I think in terms of general workforce issue, one of the things that I see is we have a lot of experienced individuals in other areas, so other industries, project managers, experienced, they have the skill set,
Yep.
but companies are unwilling to bring on those individuals and say you've a general contractor, project manager, they're not willing to bring him on and give that training and development. And I think that's one of the key issues we're facing in the industry. And it's one of those things that's stopping the industry growing. Companies are looking around thinking, where's we need people, but there's people out there. It doesn't seem that we are skills first hiring. We seem like, oh, you've got 10 years in the glazing industry, let's bring you on board.
Yeah, part of it is I think people have gotten, lack of a better term, burned by folks who come from outside the industry who just struggle to understand the idiosyncrasies of the glass and glazing world. We are a little different. You get on a project and every size might be different by a quarter of an inch or an eighth of an inch. And there might be somebody who's used to working in other industries where everything is the same exact size. It's, like widget sort of thing. And so, people have gotten burned by that and they get really uncomfortable with trying to teach people new tricks or break old habits. But you're right. I mean, if you have an organizational background, if you can be organized and you can work certain angles and you have, those skill sets that you talk about, you can work in our industry. It's worth it for companies to spend time on training people. Years ago, we did not have the training aspects that we have today. With My Glass class and things like Learn Glazing, there's a lot of options there for education that weren't there 10 years ago and weren't there maybe when people got burned by bringing in people from the outside. So I don't think that's a good excuse anymore of being worried about somebody who doesn't have relevant glass experience. I think if a person has the skill set to be a project manager or an estimator, any of those sort of things that are really, really important right now, you should be hiring them and then training them. Because I look at it as if they've got the skills to be a project manager, it's easier to teach them glass than vice versa. I mean, that's, how important, because you deal with it every day. A project manager can make or break everything a company does. So if they have skills as a project manager, teach them glass. It's easier than the other way around.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's something I face a lot on a daily basis. I speak with, great project managers, great estimators who have come from a different industry.
Yep.
A lot of them general contractors or say the roofing industry. And they want to work for a glazing contractor. They're interested. They want to speak to these companies because they're seeing it on LinkedIn. They're seeing it outside their front door, all these glazing projects going up, and they want to be involved. But the barrier seems to be a lot of these companies not willing to take the chance because of previous cases of being burnt. They're thinking, we don't want to bring them on board. We want to see what happens. And just focusing on bringing on a project manager with experience in the glazing industry who doesn't turn out to be a good one because they're not as good in terms of the skills as the PM from the general contractor.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. It's a mindset that has to change, and I think some people are changing it, but you still have that old guard here in our industry. I mean, I've been in the business for so long. I always talk about we are a business of that's the way we've always done it. And because we are a lot of family businesses or a lot of long tenured businesses, people get in their own ways and they like to it's been successful. They don't want to mess with it. And so sometimes they don't want to look outside the box when they really, really need to. And we have to keep looking outside the box. We're going to run out of people. I mean, it's as simple as that on every angle unless we start thinking more aggressively outside the box.
Yeah, I think that's where organizations like NGA, Glassbuild, where these talks happen. I remember last year by Dave Argus about the workforce. Those kind of talks and speeches, they do hit home and, people do listen. If organizations like the NGA and when you have these conferences, there's a focus, there's actually focus on, look, this is how we improve our industry by bringing on people with the skill set from different industries. I think that's going to be a good step forward for the glazing industry as a whole.
No doubt, no doubt. Dave Argus is an incredible human. What he's done with second chance opportunities for folks that have run into drug or alcohol problems and brought them along and loved them and took care of them. I mean, that guy's a hero. Yeah. And you look at, Ace Glass in Arkansas here in the United States, they've been very active at hiring people that are going through the penal system, that are just getting out of jail and corrections and need a career and taking chances on them and, being very successful. Again, those are outside the box thinking. They're risky, but if you have an organization and you have people that you can train, it's worth it, and those companies are doing well because of it.
Yeah, exactly. You touched upon Ace Glass there. It's a company I know well from my own work, and they're doing well because they're willing to take the chance. They're willing to look outside the box, and they're a good company to recruit for because they see the bigger picture. They don't just look at black and white. They see everything else around that.
Yeah, they do. Courtney Little's a genius. His dad, Newt, was a tremendous human and really intelligent. Marcus Singleton's great. So I could see why they're great to work for. It's a top-notch company, and they get it. More people should look at them. Places like Steel Encounters gets it. I mean, there's a few in our industry. We just need more. We just need more that kind of get it that way.
Yeah. Look, the industry as a whole, there's a lot of challenges going on. Sometimes your blogs give some doom and gloom as to what's going to happen. Sometimes I read it and I'm thinking, there's not going to be a lot of jobs for me to recruit in the next few weeks. But, there's a lot of challenges going on. I've mentioned tariffs earlier. What are some of the core challenges that we're looking at in the glazing industry?
Yeah, it's, as you know, you read my blog, I hate giving bad news. I like to stay positive. I haven't always been like this. I used to be like really, really grudge holding negative. So I've tried to avoid that part of my past and I try to stay positive. But when you get some of these economic numbers and you're reading the tea leaves, it gets very upsetting, and you have to at least give people a heads up that they have to ready the ship for the storm and sort of thing. Right now, what's tough is that and I'll just be frank with you, in the U.S., the stock market gives people a false sense of security. It's doing very well. If you have stocks in the stock market, you're doing great, probably, but it's not reality. Because if you look at the construction business and you look at other, metrics, it's ugly out there. It is a challenge. And part of it is the tariffs. I think the tariffs are absolutely idiotic and horrendous policy. They were put in very haphazardly. The guy who put them in, Peter Navarro, has been disappeared from the administration. You don't even see him anymore. That was the guy who was the architect of it. So that tells me there's a problem there. That this was the guy that was on TV every day talking about how great these tariffs will be, and he doesn't even exist anymore. You don't even see him. And to me, that's the sign of somebody screwed up and pride is keeping it from being fixed. It was a policy put in poorly, and it's affected us. It's affected us, dramatically because it has held up the rate cuts that were needed and expected. It is basically the biggest thing. It's given instability to the markets, and people with money don't like instability. And right now, those people with money who would be building and adding on and investing, they don't want to touch things because they have no idea what's coming next. And that has to get fixed pretty soon because bottom line is we came into 2025 thinking that the second half of the year would be good. And that was based on, okay, the election would be over. The economy was kind of headed in the right direction a little bit. There would be things that would be changed. If the Republican won, that's more of a fiscal conservative sort of thing. It could be, more business pro. None of that really happened. Things went crazy with the tariffs and the instability, and now things are looking bleak until 2026, hoping that, obviously some changes will happen, including a couple rate cuts. So long story short, really, really bad policy, in my opinion. Maybe people disagree with me, bring it on. But I think the policy here has really hurt us in the U.S., and I think it's hurt the world too. I mean, I think it's hurt Canada, it's hurt Mexico. I'm sure it's over there, with some of the craziness there as well, with the back and forths with the reciprocal tariffs have hurt you as well. So I just think it's been really poor form and rolled out incredibly badly.
Yeah, I think away from business in terms of kind of personal relationships, like, and it leaves a bit of a sour taste in a lot of people.
Yes.
It's this whole back and forth, challenging each other on tariffs. Business aside, it's a whole negative kind of what's happened there.
I can't stand it. And I live in Michigan. I live about 20 minutes to the border of Canada. I have tons of Canadian friends, and I hate acrimony that was laid between Canada and the U.S. of Canada needs to do this and Canada needs to do that. They're our closest friends and neighbors. It's ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. They did nothing to be treated, nothing. So very, very frustrating. And I'm obviously a lot closer to it with the fact I'm 20 minutes away and have so many friends over there. But I hate it. And it goes for, other parts of the world. The UK is another great example, and some of the other places in Europe that are just getting treated very poorly when in reality they're our friends. And so it's upsetting overall, especially on the economic policy. I can understand some of the military angles. There's a lot of angst out there with some of the conflicts. I'm talking more economic, and it's just been handled horrendously.
Yeah, and I think, I speak to a lot of Canadian people as well. They feel the exact same, they feel frustrated by it. And I think back to business side for these tariffs.
Please get me out of the politics conversation, please. Yeah.
On safer ground.
Yes.
But what I have seen is companies are, it has affected companies because there's some companies who are not wanting to hire. They keep saying, at the start of this year, I thought, as a lot of people predicted, construction was going to boom. Yeah. There's going to be a lot more hiring needs. There's going to be a lot more construction going on, and therefore a lot more employment requirements. But then obviously these tariffs have kicked in, a lot of other changes, the kind of uncertainty in the industry. And it's meant a lot of companies have said, we're going to pause on hiring. And I think even more unfortunate is there's individuals out there who want to move roles, who, want to progress themselves in a different company, but because of the uncertainty, they're tied down to where they are. And they're saying to me, there's so much uncertainty out there with the tariffs and the industry as a whole, and with construction moving forward, we don't know what to do.
Yeah, that's the toughest thing. And like you said, there was a lot of positivity coming into this season. But I would say the big difference between now and when we had the big recession in 2008, 2009, 2010 is that there is a lot of money sitting on the sidelines. There is a lot of action ready to burst. It's just waiting for that uncertainty to kind of get more clarified. Where in 2008, 2009, 2010, there was no money. It was very dire. So this is a little different. So that gives me a little hope that once things kind of get settled, and hopefully sooner than later, things will break loose and we will recover faster. I do think that the companies, like you said, that want to be ahead of the game, they're doing things a little differently, they're going to come out ahead of this. Those that are diversifying right now, those that are training right now. I know people that are a little slower, and when they're slow, their folks are going through training, cross-training, learning a bunch of different things. They're going to be massively successful when this kind of veil lifts a little bit on us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there are companies out there who, they're not saying everything is doom and gloom. For now, they're saying it's a period of pause, reflect on what we have, but know that once things do calm down in the future, we can get back on that ball and carry on riding. Everything's going to be much better. We can start hiring. So, yeah, like you said, back in 2008, 2009, we didn't know when it was going to be good again.
Right.
But I think now the good times are a bit closer to see.
Yeah, and also I should say that there are companies that are busy right now. Have a lot of work and are doing fine. I'm just more caught up in the current situation where bidding is, where things should be, and where they should have been this year at this time in June, July of 2025. But I just think we would be further along overall. But I do think that this is definitely different than the past. We know it's going to change and better things are going to come. It's just a matter of time.
Do you see trends change within state by state? Do you see some areas where construction carries on a quicker speed than other states, or is it generally at the same level across the US?
No, it's different. States that have room to grow and continue to build communities, like Texas, for example, are continuing to do well, especially in that Dallas-Fort Worth area, because they've got communities popping up left and right. And when you have a community pop up, it needs a school, it needs a bank, it needs retail, it needs, and all of a sudden it's a little city. And they've got a little, bunch of those around. You can do that in Dallas. You can't do that in suburban Philadelphia. There's no room to grow that way. So it's a different sort of scenario. So a lot of your southern states that have some room to move, Nashville outside of Tennessee is growing. And then you look at, interestingly enough, in areas that people don't pay a lot of attention to, Montana, Idaho, in the middle of the country, doing very, very well because people are moving there. There's land. And again, anytime there's land and a community is being built, everything else has to come to it, which is great for us. Nothing better for us than somebody saying, I'm going to put a huge housing development in over here, because it's just a matter of time before everything else around it needs to be supported. You don't see a housing development in the nearest store 10 miles away. It gets built pretty close. And so those are the areas that are doing well. I mean, some of the states that have higher tax base and less land, to build on, like a California or New York, it's a little bit of a struggle, but there are people there, that are still doing things. California will be interesting after the fires. There's a lot of building that needs to happen there, but they also have just a massive amount of red tape, even though they say they don't. It'll be interesting to see how long it takes to rebuild out there. But once they start rebuilding, I think it's going to be bonanza time out there. It's just a question on when they can clear out some of that red tape and governmental, overstep so they can get moving.
I think I touched upon it earlier about kind of industry events and so on.
Yeah.
You're all over the place. I see it every week. You're either in Texas, Germany, California. I see the benefits of kind of attending myself. I've been, but where do you feel that benefits and values come from attending these industry events, meeting with new people? What do you get out of going to all these events?
Sure. And first off, I love that you've made appearances over here. I know it's not an easy or quick trip, and you've come here and you support it and you're active in it. And I'm grateful to you for that. And you're always positive online. So kudos to you. I mean, grateful as an industry guy. I think it's classy. I think that these events, a lot of times people are like, it's just a party, or I don't learn anything new. It's the same old stuff. And couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, it's what you put into it. If you go into an event with a negative attitude that you're not going to learn anything and you're not going to meet anybody, you're probably not going to learn anything and not meet anybody. But if you go into it with, hey, I'm looking forward to this segment, I'm looking forward to this session to see what happens. I hope I can run into a Dave Argus and pick his brain while I'm walking on the floor, that sort of thing. That's where it's at. I think the networking is incredible. The education has grown dramatically. I've been involved with Glassbuild a long, long time. I think this year will be the 15th year that I've worked for NGA. But even before that, when I had fabrication company, I was an exhibitor. Back in the past, a lot of the sessions were kind of fluff. Now, the sessions are meaty, you're learning things, you're taking a lot of things in. And I think there's a lot of value to the education side, the technical side, and then really the networking side. You can't beat connecting with people, and that's how you learn.
Oh, perfect. I think you said it spot on. That I couldn't rate them highly enough. I think they're great to meet new people. You meet with people that you speak to online. There's a lot of that networking, and it helps to grow the industry moving forward as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And it grows the knowledge base. I mean, if you're in this business, or if you're in any business, you always want to learn. Why let your competitors get past you? Because they might be there. And if they're not there, then you have a chance to be there and you can own that. It blows my mind. My brothers work with different companies that were like so anti-show and conference. And I would say to him, why? They don't want to spend the money. I'm like, that's a killer. You're not going to cut your way to prosperity. You're not going to save your way to prosperity. I mean, you got to come to these things so you can learn. So I think it's pretty fascinating that some people feel that way. I'm completely the opposite.
Yeah, I think there's somewhat a correlation between those companies that attend these events and their growth within the next 12 months. I think there's definitely a correlation there that I've seen speaks for itself, really.
Yeah, no, it does. The people that are active in it, I think, do very, very well. And they do well for themselves. They do well for their companies. And those who don't, they might have a nice little niche, but they're chasing. They're nowhere where they should be. And if they would be coming and would be active, they'd be so much further along.
Look, I love reading about kind of new innovations in the glass industry. I'll be reading more about kind of bird-friendly glass, energy efficient buildings, and there's a lot of more concern towards the environmental issues. Where do you see the industry moving in terms of the whole products itself, the environmental concerns, sustainability? Where is the industry moving in that direction?
I think the industry is doing everything they can to move forward on those angles. Now things have been held up a little bit because the new administration doesn't like a lot of that stuff. So grants that were in place before the new administration came in have been either put on hold or canceled. So that might slow things up. But I do think the manufacturers and the fabricators, everybody's got an eye on it because this what comes with the sustainability is more efficiencies too. And so there is that double-edged sword is that if you can get more sustainable and learn how you're doing things, you might also become more efficient, which is good for the bottom line. I think it's a slow process, but I think slowly but surely we're getting there. It's interesting that you said that because today NGA has a post up about EPDs and PCRs and the effect on people, and they're just taking a poll. If you have these, if you don't have these, how does that affect you? So it's going to be interesting to see how that all goes, but I don't think it's over by a long shot. I do think that it will come along. I just think it's now going to move a little slower. I think we need it. I think it's just going to be a little bit of a slower pace than what we would have had a couple years ago.
I think going back to what we said earlier about workforce and the kind of growing the workforce, I've seen some companies out there really making kind of a solid commitment towards D&I, diversity and inclusion. Yep. And there's a lot of posts that I see on LinkedIn, players like Sangoban or the likes of Harman. You see it, it's there. Do you think that's becoming more of a focus in the industry?
I do. I think it is. And I also think it's because, again, we need qualified, good workforce. And in the past, people were maybe looking past those sort of candidates for whatever reason. And now you can't look past anybody, and you need to be turning over every stone to find good talent, no matter, who they are, what they look like, where they come from. I mean, we need talent. You can't, and if that means that you're diversifying more, which you should be anyway, that's big. I mean, so we do the women in glass and fenestration, and It's amazing the growth there. And there's just incredibly talented people that, maybe 20, 30 years ago would not have gotten a shot, and now they do. And it's funny, I talk with, Julie Schimmelpenny from Eastman, and I remember meetings with her 25 years ago where it was her and maybe 2 or 3 other women total in a room of 400 people. So things have changed dramatically. She's the OG of that group, and she's still with us and still pounding along. But now we've gained so many more people, and we're better for it. We have to keep going down that path. I think whether you put a title on it like the D&I or you're just doing it because you need more talent to your workforce, it's a must. It has to happen. We need the people. We can't be picky. We need good people to move this industry forward no matter what.
Yeah, and these people are good at what they do. I've seen a huge increase in the number of women in the industry, and they're great at what they're doing, and they're progressing their careers because they're excellent at what they do.
Absolutely. And you have more women in ownership. Chris Fockler owns ICD, which is a great, supplier. Danielle Watley at Techstar Glass in Texas is fascinating, fabulous talent. So, I mean, we need more of that, and we need more people at every level to continue to bring more people under our tent, and the better we will be.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think focusing on growing the industry to make it more welcoming to everyone across industries, across people, I think it's going to help the industry moving forward. Look, Max, just final question. It's been great having you on this, my first podcast.
Honored that I got to be on your first podcast. I can't wait till you've got like 100 of these down and you're like, oh yeah, my first podcast was a joke. I had this guy from the States. He was terrible. So I love this. I'm honored.
You've been perfect. The reason why I wanted you on my first podcast wasn't just because you have so much knowledge, but because you've got so much experience doing podcasts. I know you'd be able to walk me through it, and there would be no awkward silences or anything.
Nope, you're crushing it, my friend. You got no worries. You're a natural.
Thank you. But just one final question we asked is, what's the most valuable piece of advice you've ever received throughout your career?
Yeah, it's such a tough one. And my kids would laugh at me because they call me mush because my memory is starting to go. And so I get mushy memory. So I don't remember a lot of stuff that I should. But the one thing I always say is that, and I've always been told, is nothing moves as fast as you want it to. So you have to have some patience, for process. You have to have patience throughout it. You're just not going to get from A to Z as fast as you wanted to, as fast as you plan to. And you've got to have alternate plans, backup plans, processes in place. So nothing moves as fast as you want. And that goes in our industry. You get spec'd on a job and you want that job to happen tomorrow. It may not happen for 9 months. And so nothing moves as fast. And the key of that is having patience, taking a measured approach, and having all of your plans and ducks in a row, whatever the cliche is, having everything together so when things do pop, you are prepared and ready to go.
I think that's perfect kind of message to the industry right now, as in the position where we are right now. I think that's patience, seeing how things go. I think that's a great message.
And I think you could use this for your clients when they say, hey, I want that project manager. I need him yesterday. I need her yesterday. And you could be saying, hey, nothing moves as fast as we want it to. A little patience there, Mr. Customer. I'll get you that perfect project manager. No problem.
Just give me a day. Just have some patience. Yeah.
I'm good, but I'm not that good. Give me a day. Tell them to just have a little patience and you will come through because you always come through.
Thank you very much for joining me today on this podcast. It's been great having you, Max. I know you're very busy, so thank you very much for taking the time.
No, pleasure was all mine. Best to you guys. Keep up the great work. The support of the industry that you all do is tremendous. We're all grateful for it, and I look forward to seeing you in person here soon.
That was Conversations with CSG. I'm sure many professionals will relate and see value in the insights shared. Stay tuned for further insights from industry-leading professionals on our podcast, Conversations with CSG. Thanks for listening.